First off, I just want to thank the Loopring team, obviously Brecht's, the Chainlink community, and the entire blockchain community who's joining us here today. Basically, obviously, everybody's busy. So again, we certainly appreciate Brecht and Johann for stopping by. The real goal kind of this Q&A is really to allow the community to learn more about the integration between Loopring and Chainlink and exploring what makes this integration unique and beneficial to both the teams and the users of each and every one of these products. Just to briefly go over the agenda for the first 30 to 40 minutes, it's kind of got to be a Q&A/fireside chat structure. Well, I'll sort of ask some questions, allowing both Brecht and Johann to respond. And then this will then be followed by kind of 10 to 15 minutes of sort of these Q&A questions, which the community is working on now. If you want to submit a question, again, the Pigeonhole app's a way to do so, and we're posting that link in the live stream right now for you. If you have a question that was not addressed for any reason, feel free to stop by either team's chat channels. I'll actually put all of that in the kind of the comments, stuff like that about that. So if you want to find out more about Loopring, hop in one of their channels to speak to them on their Discord or Telegram or all the things that they've got going on, you can certainly do so. So again, thank you guys for joining us. And we'll go ahead and get started. So first question, Brecht, would you mind kind of introducing yourself and maybe giving us just a little bit of your background, maybe prior to Loopring, and then sort of what you do for Loopring?
Yeah, great. So thanks to Chainlink for organizing this, and especially to Johann and Corey. So yeah, I've started working for Loopring around 2 years ago now, I think. Before that, I was just normal software engineer. I studied software engineering at Ghent University, mainly because I was interested in gaming. So I've been, like, most of my life, I've been trying to make games, but I haven't made anything successful yet in that part of my career. But yeah, before Loopring, I worked for 5 years for Graphine. So Graphine was a gaming middleware company that made like virtual text streaming. So if you're familiar with mega textures, yeah, that's like kind of like the most general known name. So we did it the same, and it was implemented in. They helped implement it in Unreal Engine and Unity now as well. So yeah, mostly like optimizing stuff on CPU and GPU. But yeah, then I started. I heard of Ethereum. I didn't know about Ethereum. I thought it was just like Bitcoin in the past. But then I started knowing Ethereum. I started knowing all the interesting crypto projects. Yeah, noticed Loopring. The first thing I did for Loopring was actually joining the optimization bounty. So they organized a couple of optimization bounties for Protocol 1 and Protocol 2. I joined those optimization bounties. I was pretty good at it. And then I decided to like join the team as a full member. And since then, yeah, I've been working full time for Loopring. Just at the beginning, it was Protocol 2 I worked on, getting it on mainnet. And then about a year ago, I started working on Protocol 3, which is now being used on mainnet. And yeah, it's kind of like the big breakthrough for Loopring now.
Awesome. We'll definitely get a little bit more into kind of what you guys have sort of built that really makes you unique in this space. Johann, I think a lot of people know your background, but would you just mind at least sharing kind of what your role is for Chainlink?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys. Yeah, so very quickly, basically at Chainlink, I've been mostly working on getting users using our oracles. So basically working with them on the technical integration, seeing how they can easily consume the data, seeing where we can really pinpoint the current issues they have, and see how Chainlink can help them resolve the biggest problems these users are having, right? So DeFi is really a great occurrence for Chainlink, and kind of all these DEX protocols like Loopring, all these breakthroughs are really incredibly important for us, just because for people who have been in crypto for a while, it seems like you are kind of like a man in a desert, right? Where nothing was happening. And DeFi is like this oasis where stuff is suddenly happening and people are using it. So yeah, Chainlink wanted to make sure that we were part of this revolution, that we had all the tools to provide people with as much decentralization, security, and ease of use as possible. and the fact that Loopring has really been a protocol which has been there for a while. I think you guys were for 2 years now. It's really been a big accomplishment for us, and we're super proud of it. So that's very quickly what I do. As for background, I won't go into it because we won't have the same discussion every time, I guess.
Absolutely. Brecht, kind of going back to you, can you explain a little bit kind of about this new release that your team has just released, and kind of maybe what makes it unique in terms of Ethereum and DEXs, and kind of what you guys have really just finalized?
Yeah, so Loopring, of course, is a protocol for decentralized exchanges. So the biggest part of Loopring 3 is, of course, the scalability. So we've been doing, like Johann said, we've been doing decentralized exchanges using normal smart contracts. So everything, not everything, but mainly in smart contracts, doing all the logic in smart contracts. Yeah, and the order matching off-chain. So scalability was always kind of like part of the Loopring protocol, but now we've kind of like taken a big leap forward and doing even more stuff off-chain. So yeah, Loopring 2, most things, all the logic on-chain to do the actual settlements, but order matching off-chain. But now in Loopring 3, using zero-knowledge proofs, we've even gone further. So even the settlement of the trades is also done off-chain in circuits. So it's kind of like this big mathematical cryptographical thing that you can prove that you've done some computations correctly off-chain, and then using like a small proof, you can prove on-chain that all those computations you did off-chain are actually valid. So that's kind of like the big leap that Protocol 3 introduces, is that we use zero-knowledge proofs, and that gives us large scalability improvements, because like we already, so the things we did on-chain, like signature checking and doing the actual token transfers, those are still like very expensive to do on-chain. So like doing a token transfer is like 20,000 gas, checking a signature around 5,000 gas. It's kind of like all these expensive things that we now don't need to do on-chain anymore, which gives us like large improvements in scalability. Like with Protocol 2, we could do like 2 or 3 trades per second, fully using Ethereum mainnet, but now we're at like around 2,000 trades per second we can do. So that's kind of like the big picture of why Loopring 3 is so important for us.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting how you have the sort of the benefits still of decentralization, but at the same point, you sort of get some speeds that make it look and act like, I think, what normal people have kind of come to expect for trading and things like that.
Yeah, so yeah, the other important thing is, of course, that we do that so like we can do 2,000 trades per second, but without any extra security assumptions than layer 2 Ethereum. So it's as secure as Protocol 2, but with the large increase in scalability. We also have like a mode that even has higher scalability, like 16,000 trades per second, but that has like a little bit less security. So if we don't post all the data on chain, then it's still pretty secure, but it's less secure than layer 2 of Ethereum.
Great. All right. Yeah. Thank you for that. So then that directly goes into, so how do, Chainlink oracles or oracles come into play sort of in this particular situation?
Yeah. So for Loopring 3, we also introduced LRC staking. So staking is used for like a couple of parts in a couple of parts of our protocol. So the one part for Chainlink that we're using Chainlink for now is for the economic security of the protocol. So the way the protocol works is first there's an operator that kind of like batches all the trades, and then that block is first committed on chain, but hasn't yet been proven. So the thing about zero knowledge proofs today is that they take a long time to actually generate. So if you have big blocks, it can take a couple of minutes until you have generated the proof, which has kind of like a large latency until like you did the proof on the exchange, but then the actual finality of that trade is only when yeah, the actual finality is only final when like the zero knowledge proof is generated and it's posted on chain and validated. So we have like a two-part system of committing blocks. So at the first step, you just commit the block without actually generating the proof. So you can do generating a block is pretty cheap, very cheap. So the latency until it's on chain is also very fast. So the block is on chain, but then it's still unsure if the block is actually valid. So that's where the LRC staking comes in. If an operator commits a block on chain that is invalid, then the operator is slashed. He loses some funds that he has staked on our contracts. So that way, yeah, there's some kind of economic finality. Like if you commit a block but it's invalid, then the operator loses his money. So he's like he doesn't want that to happen. So even without the actual proof there's already some kind of guarantees that your trade is final. And that's why for that kind of staking we use LRC. So the operator needs to stake a certain amount of LRC, and for that, for setting that amount, we use Chainlink to do the USD to LRC conversion. So like we can just say like all the exchange needs to stake 50,000 USD. How much is this in LRC? And then if the operator does something wrong, we can just slash like $5,000 of worth of in LRC.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that thorough explanation. So then I guess the question then really goes to Johann, why does this kind of make sense for Chainlink?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. First, as I discussed, right, Chainlink is also a project which wants to help and support the ecosystem, right? So basically, we are seeing DeFi kind of sprawl up out of nowhere and really build so quickly. We want to make sure that we are here to give the developers on Ethereum the tools to be able to do what they need to do, basically for their DApp. So here, ensuring the security of stakers and of relayers, which in consequence has huge kind of crypto economic guarantees and repercussions, was very important for us. So deploying this Oracle to support Loopring there was really a priority. Secondly, of course, the way the Chainlink network works is having node operators, which basically get traffic through their nodes by supplying data, and this data being used and consumed by users of the Chainlink protocol. So just like Ethereum, in order to work, needs traffic and needs use cases, Chainlink, in order to work, needs node operators who are getting traffic through their nodes and who have data which is being used on mainnet for real-world tangible use cases, which should sustain for years. I don't think Loopring is going to have to change their whole crypto economic model. I mean, I won't talk for them, but I don't think, I think having this kind of tangible use cases where basically node operators are ensured traffic for a long time was very important also for us. So yeah, just like any protocols needs usage to sustain, Chainlink needs usage to sustain itself, and being able to help the ecosystem while doing it is of course a huge plus, because as node operators are getting traffic, it means they're actually providing a reliable service to the industry that people need to consume and to have.
All right, thank you very much. I know a lot of our the Chainlink community especially kind of always wants to know how these kind of integrations happen. So can you kind of sort of walk me through the process, like, how long ago were you guys first talking, and sort of what are the stages of kind of an integration like this look like?
Sure. So I was actually pretty familiar with the Loopring team for a while. We started talking the integration and use cases, I think, around end of November, if I'm not mistaken. The integration was actually extremely straightforward for a few reasons. First, the Loopring team moves extremely fast, which is really cool to see. Brecht, I think you were done with the smart contract part in a few days or so, at 5 a.m. or something. So, and on our side, deploying reference contracts and coordinating with the operators is also extremely fast. So I think the way a typical integration goes is we find Basically, users or us, we discussed and we find a good use case where we can work on together, right? We identify something either easy to do or medium short term. It can be whichever. Here it was something short term. It was pretty easy for both parties. We have a pretty precise timeline on when we want to do these things. There is work on the Chainlink side to basically set up the reference contracts, and for the node operators to basically buy the API keys required to run all of this and coordinate there. Then the reference contract was set up, I think, after a week on mainnet of talking with Loopring, and Loopring started consuming and using it 1 week later. So the technical integration here went quite fast. I think it was 2 weeks, right? So Brecht, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 2 weeks or 2 weeks and a few days, not more than this. And
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically how it goes. So we coordinate, we speak together, and we find really cool use cases to work on. And I think we have also some really cool stuff that we can work on later on and stuff. So, it's only a beginning. I think with every user will be them to make sure that, we don't want to have people consuming our contracts and then we don't talk or something. We want to make sure that we support them in their vision and that they never have a need to work on anything where Chainlink as a protocol and node operators could help them, basically, which is data related, of course.
All right, thank you. I guess, Brecht, why we talked a little bit about what Chainlink oracles are being used for, in terms of making sure that enough Loopring is staked if someone needs to be slashed and what that USD amount is. Why does the decentralized Oracle network make more sense than like a centralized Oracle? Like, why essentially are you guys using Chainlink for that?
So yeah, basically, we just want to have the best price feeds because even for further plans, for further integrations, we want to have kind of like not a single source of the prices for all the tokens. Like maybe we can talk about it a bit now, but like the other thing that we might use Chainlink for is like for doing stuff like stop orders. So that the operator can only like do the trade when the price is below a certain price. Using anything other than some kind of decentralized price feed just wouldn't work. So even just using the prices of our own exchange is just not good enough because it's too easily manipulated. So we really need to have like a wide range of different price feeds that are like combined and one price that we can trust.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So now we're kind of through the first 20 minutes or so. So what we'll do now is kind of get to some of our community kind of Q&A questions that they've asked on our Pigeonhole Live app. So guys, if you want to get your questions in their community, make sure to do that quickly. But we got a couple that got quite a few votes, and I'll kind of ask the question. Some of these are probably going to be more Johann, or some of these are probably more Brecht. But whoever feels like they can answer, feel free to step forward. You've kind of addressed this a little bit, but this is sort of our top question. So, where do you see Chainlink and Loopring's partnership or collaboration advancing in the 6 months' time? And then the second part of that, how dependent upon this is ETH 2.0, or kind of what does the next version of ETH sort of mean for something like this? So we'll go back kind of the first one. So do you see kind of a chance for further integration? You already talked a little bit about that, Brecht. But if you want to elaborate any more, Johann, if you want to elaborate anything more on that.
Yeah, I'll just finish with what I was thinking. So yeah, for the stop orders are one thing, but we're also working on like a smart wallet. So for smart wallets, we also envision things like a daily limit. So we have the smart wallet can contain lots of tokens, and then there's a daily limit also configured in like some kind of $100 or $1,000, whatever. And then the user can spend that much in a single day, but then it's like shared over all the tokens. So we need the dollar price for all the tokens, a realistic price for all the tokens in that case. So that's another case that we're looking at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Kind of the next question. This one's a little bit more for Johann. And obviously, it's always a hot topic. It's kind of staking or penalty deposits. But when penalty deposits or staking is in place for Chainlink, do you expect this to kind of further increase the usability of this integration? So, would penalty deposits, when that comes in place, would that kind of unleash sort of something new for Loopring, or how would something like that maybe work, or would it add anything more to this integration?
Yeah, great question. So two things here. I think there is usability, and there is also, secondly, security, right? It's obvious that, so currently, the protocol is extremely secure. We can't really do better right now with as far as security, just because it's extremely hard to combine the level of security and decentralization Chainlink already offers, right? Crypto economic guarantees can also be mixed up as some kind, as a trusted, as how do we say, defensive depth approach. So we get more and more defensive securities, defensive points as we go to basically secure the protocol even more, right? So it can improve the security as far as allowing more use cases for Loopring. I don't think that would really be the case. I think the feeds we have right now are more than enough to handle any kind of value Loopring would basically rely on for their staking. And I think the good thing for usability is being able to set up these networks more easily with basically staking can allow you to trust people that you don't really know and who don't have an established reputation, just because if they screw up, they lose a lot of their funds, right? So as far as setting up new networks for users, which I don't think Loopring would really be concerned by this because they already have these networks, but for people who want to set up new networks and who want to find node operators easily, etc., node operators offering staking would allow more trust, basically. So you would be able to trust them more easily. That's the idea. So two approaches: security, usability, and yeah. But in any case, I think staking is always good to have. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Johann, this one is probably also geared a little bit more towards you, but also Brecht could probably add to this a little bit. But obviously, Loopring, zero knowledge proofs, the speed, everything that sort of means. Do you see Chainlink oracles or the Chainlink Oracle Network kind of maybe using zero knowledge proofs in the future? And then kind of what applications, might you see something like that be used for?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite like, maybe we should ask Loopring because they know their stuff as far as. No, just kidding. Like, we've been looking at zero proof knowledge for a while. We have multiple utilizations for it that we could think of. So all of this is basically a research. It's working on what we could use, what we can't use. We have to be very careful about this stuff because once it gets into the protocol, it's hard to get it out, of course. Zero knowledge proofs can be very interesting for when data gets aggregated and feeding back this data on chain. I think that would be a really cool use case for Chainlink. That I'm not saying that's something we should do or anything, but that's something we've definitely looked at because zero proof knowledge can have many applications, and one of them is making the way you compute data much more efficient, right? So basically, the way responses would be done on chain, whenever an oracle is responding, would cost much less to have as far as gas fees go for Ethereum.
All right, awesome. Brecht, what about you with zero knowledge proofs? Obviously, it's a big deal and people have really taken notice, I think, of what you guys have done with that. But do you see any sort of future use cases or maybe even outside of Loopring? But what do you think zero knowledge proofs kind of, sort of unlocks for the rest of sort of the crypto blockchain community?
I think in general, it unlocks scalable blockchains like in general. So I think zero knowledge proofs will just be used for creating the next generation of blockchains just on layer one. So the layer one algorithms will also use zero knowledge proofs in certain cases. If you've been following Vitalik, he's been doing all sorts of research on the Ethereum research forums. So I think that's kind of like the main thing. Like for the crypto economics, the crypto system, it's just it will be a basic building block of all blockchains.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, kind of like the last one here to sort of wrap it off, which is kind of future or forward looking. But when decentralized exchanges kind of take off or maybe grow, more than what they are now, how do you see it affect the greater financial world? So I guess we'll start with you, Brecht. Do you think there's, I guess, further applications for sort of decentralized exchanges, or do you think this is really going to impact the way that maybe the financial world does business 10, 20 years from now?
So yeah, and full disclosure, I asked Matthew some hints for this question. So because I'm mainly a technical guy, but yeah, so he said like the power of the choice. So there's like, you don't have to use decentralized or non-custodial solutions, but at least you have the choice. And with our current system, that's like probably as efficient almost as centralized exchanges. It's also like a choice now to use. See, it has centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges. So yeah, it gives users a lot of choice on what to do and what to use. And in our, like in the Western world, it's like less, you could say less important, because we have like trusted entities, like there's all kinds of laws that need to be respected by all the entities. But like in like smaller countries, more corrupt countries, it's like much more important that at least these people have access to like decentralized finance applications that they can trust. So yeah, something.
Great, perfect. Johann, do you want to add anything to that? Again, I'll kind of ask it again, but when you feel that decentralized exchanges, or when decentralized exchanges take off, or some of these other decentralized financial products that we're seeing, how do you see it affecting kind of the greater financial world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, I really like this kind of concept of right of, like, you have the right to choose, right? And I feel like blockchain in general is kind of that, right? Like, you have the right to go and use Bitcoin, or you have the right to pay in US dollar in fiat, right? That's a thing in which really blockchain offers. I feel like it's hard to predict where all these products will go. I think they'll have a huge impact, at least on countries which don't have the same level of infrastructure, banking infrastructure, that we currently have in the kind of Western world. That's my feeling. So probably, I think this has been said many times, right? But I think it's very hard to see and to say where DeFi will go and what will happen once it gets really adopted, because it keeps on surprising, and because it keeps having effects which we wouldn't even have predicted 1 year or 2 years ago in our wildest dreams. Like saying that there would be a few million of Ether wrapped up right now in protocols, while the DAO hack happened barely 3 years ago, is kind of insane, right? So I think it's very hard to say. I'm honestly, obviously extremely optimistic about what will happen. But yeah, I think we'll get surprised, as we always get surprised with this space. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, everybody, that kind of wraps up our video Q&A for today. I want to just say special thanks to Brecht and Johann for joining us, and all the community members that hopped in and viewed the stream. I'd also like to thank Matthew from Loopring as well, who helped me kind of put this together, and you heard sort of Brecht reference him earlier. We're looking to do a lot more of these in the future, so make sure you subscribe to our channel for more content from us. But again, if you have any suggestions, anything else you'd like us to do differently, we're always open to it. But thank you for sharing your time today, everybody, and we look forward to doing more of these in the future. Thank you again, Brecht. Thank you again, Johann.